This is the B3 Astar, and today I'm going to get my conversion from the B2 up to the B3. So stick around and we're going to go and have a look at what the differences are. Hi, I'm Rick James from the Pilot Teacher, and today we're going to be looking at the B3, and I'm going to get to fly it. I'm going to get the conversion from the B2 to the B3. And this video is going to be all about that, so let's go and take a look. So here we are on the inside of the B3 Astar. It's a little bit different. We've got some newer seats which are far more comfortable, and the main thing inside here is just the instrument panel and avionics that are different and upgraded. It's a nice instrument panel, makes it very intuitive to fly. So let's jump in and we'll have a look what it actually looks like when it's all powered up. So here we are in the cockpit of the B3 Astar, and yeah, it's a really nice layout. The main differences between the B2 is the two screens that we have here and this one in-light panel. And the main difference with this machine is that it's got a different engine that's got a lot more power. So I have an increase of 660 pounds that I can lift on the hook. Flying it with people inside, the internal gross weight stays the same at 4961 pounds, but I can take an additional 660 pounds on the hook, which is great when I'm wanting to do external load lifting work. So lots more power, and we have the digital engine control unit on the engine, so it allows me to have the digital screens here. And yeah, it's just a really nice aircraft. The top screen here is basically showing my engine power parameters. We have the fuel gauge on the side here, and then at the bottom we have just my engine oil temperature and pressure, my voltage coming out of my generator. So yeah, it's really simple, nice and clean. But it's nice to have a digital screen upgrade. The other thing that's a big difference with the B3 is that we don't have a manual start on the engine. We have a digital engine control unit. So it's basically I turn the switch to idle, and the engine control unit monitors the start and starts the engine. So it's it's really nice. I don't have to manually move the throttle anymore. It's just a case of turning the switch, and the engine control unit takes care of that. So yeah, this is the inside of the B3. Let's go and have a look at the engine. So this is the AS350 engine from Turbomeca. It produces 848 horsepower, and for a machine like the Astar, it is an awesome powerhouse. So the main things that are kind of different compared to the B2 that I've normally been flying is that this one mainly has a digital fuel control system, whereas the other one is the mechanical. It had the mechanical linkages from the throttle and the collective, but this one is all done by electronic stepper motors being controlled by the digital engine control unit. So that is the main difference. Everything else kind of stays the same. You've got the air intake, the axial compressor here, you've got the centrifugal compressor, you've got the combustion chamber, and then we've got the power turbine at the back here before it goes and exhausts the gas out the back. Power turbine drives the gearbox, which then drives the main drive shaft, which goes forward into the main transmission and to the rear to the tail rotor unit. But yeah, I'd say this one is just a little bit different with the fuel control system, but as an engine, give me an extra 660 pounds to be able to lift on the hook. I'll take it every single day. So that is the AS350 engine on the B3 Astar. Okay then guys, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to go through and explain what we're doing on the checklist to get the aircraft started. We've got to go fly because the governor on this aircraft has to be flown differently, so we're basically just getting the aircraft ready. So I'm checking doors will be closed, seat belts are on, checking the cyclic friction to make sure that it is on, we're checking the heating system, make sure those are off at the moment, and then the rotor brake, making sure that is off. The fuel shut-off valve is down and locked in the open position. Circuit breakers, and then we're going to check for the collective. So this collective's got like a spring that holds it down. So now I've just released that. Collective's come up and gone back down. Now locking it back into the secured position. The main thing with the B3 is it has a twist grip on it, and if you turn that twist grip whilst the aircraft is not running, it can screw up the linkages. So radios and everything are off. Make sure the sand filter switch is in the non-bypass position. All the instrument lights are coming on as required. Checking the altimeter, checking the governor switch, make sure it's in the automatic position, and the starting selector for the engine is off. And as we're going through, just making sure all the switches are in the positions that I want them to be. Checking the fire extinguisher, make sure that is there. And now it's time to get the helmet on. So now the battery switch is coming on. I'm going to check the battery. I want to make sure the voltage is over 22 volts. Checking our fuel, making sure we've got fuel for the flight. No fuel, it means it goes quiet. I want to check the fuel pressure to make sure that is on. Checking the generator light to make sure that is on at the moment. And then we're going to do the caution and warning panel test. So basically test that, and all the caution lights should come up on the caution panel. After we've done that, I'm going to turn on the anti-collision light, and I'm going to press the hydraulic test button for 2 seconds, and what that does is it just releases the pressure in the accumulators. So checking the screens, making sure that there is no caution messages on the digital screens. We want to make sure the bleed valve for the engine is showing it's open, and also we have the twist grip and governor warning lights are in the off position. Just before we start, we're going to make sure that the twist grip is in the flight position. So I'll do that, and I'll take the security sleeve off it. That basically tells all the pilots to not twist it when the aircraft's not running, basically. Because as pilots, we are simple people. We forget stuff, so our company has a Velcro cover over the twist grip. And we're going to get ready to start the engine. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to move the engine start selector switch to idle and check the battery voltage to make sure it doesn't drain too much during start. As it starts, we're going to be checking the engine parameters, checking the engine TOT to make sure it doesn't start too hot, and just make sure it is doing what it's supposed to be. Next thing I'm looking for is to make sure that the rotors are turning by 25% N1, just in case you forgot to untie your rotors and the engine's trying to start and turn the rotors and they're tied up. So if that was the case, now you would shut the engine down. It's good, blades are turning. So now I'm looking at my top screen as the engine starts to approach about 60% of its N1 speed. I want to make sure that the screen brings basically what's called the first limit indicator up, so it changes the screen. I'm going to check the caution warning panel, making sure the fuel pressure light is gone out. I want to make sure that my pitot is on, basically, so my pitot tube is heated. And once the start cycle is finished, I'm going to start turning on all the necessary equipment, so my radios, lights, things like that. Okay, so once we're up to idle, I'm going to remove the friction lock on the cyclic and we're going to test the hydraulic system. So I'm going to press the hydraulic accumulators test button and we're going to let the hydraulic isolator light come on, and I'm going to make sure that when I turn it back off, the light goes out within 3 to 4 seconds. Once all my hydraulics are tested, the starting switch selector can then go to flight, which is going to bring the RPM up to basically kind of 100% ready for takeoff. And at this point we want to make sure that all of our gauges are in the green. Our RPM for takeoff is around about 385-ish for the main rotor RPM, and all the lights on the caution panel are off. Then just before we take off, we have the pre-takeoff check, so I just want to confirm that my cyclic friction is taken off. I'm going to take the collective friction off so that I can move the collective up and down. Landing lights and the pulse lights are on as required. My directional gyro is set to the compass, so they're both reading the same heading. Checking my digital screens to make sure they are clear, everything is in the green and there is no caution messages on there. Have a quick look left and right and behind and above just to make sure nothing has approached us without us knowing, and then it's time to lift into the hover. Once we get into hover, this has been drilled into me from day one, and it's basically it's called cache. And you lift up, you check the center of gravity is good, you look around, check the area is clear, you check your skids to make sure they're clear and there is nothing hanging over them like a fuel hose or a grounding wire for the fuel or a log or a rock or anything like that. Basically making sure your skids are clear, and then you check your hook is clear to make sure that you don't have a long line attached. Once the cache is clear, next thing I'm just going to do is I'm just going to look over at my hover power and just take a note of how much power I'm pulling in the hover. And now we are ready to go and fly. If you like this video, give it a subscribe, hit that notify button so you know exactly when my next video is coming out. And if you want to give it a like, I really appreciate that. It really helps the channel. And yeah, I want to hear your comments below. If you have any particular questions on this aircraft in particular or any aircraft, then throw them in there and we'll get the camera out and we'll go and have a look and get your questions answered as best as I can. So I'll see you next time.